So we paid $6 instead of $1,500 in that one instance.
Yeah.
Hey there, welcome to the Sunday Reset. I'm Jen.
I'm Jill.
And we are the hosts of the Frugal Friends Podcast. And today we are talking about how I saved $2,000, what went well in our meal plan, and some of the scams that can get you feeling guilty about spending money. That's coming up.
Hey everyone. Welcome. So we're going to talk about our big money moves this past week, what we made to eat this past week, and a listener question. But let's start with our big money moves. Jen,
Okay.
How did you save $2,000?
All right. So this was over 2 different episodes that actually happened in like 1 week. So we had a couple of leaks. And so one was in my car. I had coolant leaking, and Travis looked through and figured it out. It was the radiator. So we had kind of done some research about and made some calls about how much it would cost to get the radiator fixed. Radiators in and of themselves are not expensive. Mm-hmm. What is expensive is the work to get into the, because it's so deep in there, and it's really not something you can do yourself because of all the things around it. Yeah. You have to take the whole front of the car off. Mm-hmm. And because of that, labor is expensive. It's about $1,500.
That's insane.
To do a radiator.
Oh, yeah. That hurts.
Right? We found one that was like $700 potentially, but that was kind of like a minimum. It's always, they get you in with $700 and then you get in there and it's like, it's actually $1,500, just like everybody else.
Yeah.
So we made some calls. Like, what can we do? What do you think? And so Travis called his stepdad, and he's like, this leak sealant, like leak sealer, it works most of the time. Try it. If it works, then it works. If it doesn't, then at least you've tried something, and you
You're
do
out
need
a
to
few
take
bucks
it. Right.
And some of your own
$6.
time.
$6. He said there's a $6 one and a $40 one, and the $6 one works just fine. Even on big leaks.
Yeah.
So we got it, and it has worked.
Wow.
I am no longer leaking coolant. And it may not be a permanent fix, but it
works for now.
It's worked for now. So we paid $6 instead of $1,500 in that one instance.
Yeah. And
everything was on YouTube about how to do it. It wasn't hard. It was literally just opening like a cap, pouring in, and running the car for 30 minutes.
Wow.
And that could be running errands. We just let it idle because we were home. Yeah. And it's worked
amazing
so far.
And then what was the second instance?
Second was that we had a Freon leak in our mini splits. A lot of you guys know the back half of our house, we renovated it and closed it off to be an Airbnb rental. And so we, instead of using our central AC over there, we just got a couple mini splits so that they would have their own temperature control. Well, the Freon started leaking in some, we don't know how, but it led to the upstairs mini splits no longer cooling down the upstairs. And so that is another thing. Freon in your AC, you always have to call somebody out for. So Travis, and it wouldn't be that expensive, but still a couple $100, up to $500.
Yeah.
Depending on when they come out, what the fix is.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out there is another leak sealer for Freon in the AC.
No
you can also
way.
buy that.
Amazing.
And that one was $60. Here, Travis actually texted. I asked him, I was like, because I didn't do this, and I'm like, what is the thing you got? And so we'll link to these things. The AC was Easy Seal, like EASY, and it was $60. And the one for the Freon for the car was called Bars Leak, radiator stop leak, and that was $6.
Wow.
So a little more expensive for the AC, but still $60 compared to the couple hundred we would have spent.
Life does not always go this way, but
No.
when it does, and you've got a $6 fix, and it's working for at least a time, I'm here for it. That's amazing.
Yeah. How about you?
So we prepped for our taxes this past week, and I realized by digging in a little bit that it might make more sense for me to itemize my taxes. So some things that would make that worth it is if you are paying a lot on taxes and insurance for your house, as well if you have a mortgage, if you're a homeowner, if you paid a lot in medical expenses, if you did a lot of giving to nonprofits, you can kind of tally all of these things up. And if they are more than the standard deduction, then it might be worth itemizing.
Mortgage interest, though, not included in that, unfortunately.
Mortgage interest.
Yeah.
Yeah, but taxes and insurance.
Right. But and PJ, we use the same tax guy. Yeah. He said it goes back and forth on mortgage interest. Like,
whether or not
you can't, but sometimes you can, and maybe you should, just in case you can.
Right.
It was very back and forth. I mean, we took the standard deduction, so it didn't matter. But
right.
Yeah.
So I tallied all of that up, was able to kind of, because we spent a lot on medical expenses this past year. So I'm like, this might make sense. And we do also give 10% of our income. So I was wondering, could it make sense? So I put it all together. We do pay for an accountant because Frugal Friends, and for us personally, it just makes it make sense.
Yeah.
And so being able to submit that to our accountant, he was so kind to kind of go through it, run all of the numbers. As it turns out, it still made sense just to take the standard deduction because with all of the medical expenses, it's not as if you just immediately can count that as a deduction. They only will count about 7 or 8% of the medical expenses. They kind of consider that you could have afforded a part of this on your own. Not all of it can count towards a deduction. So I didn't realize that. That's why you have somebody to ask about these things, because there are so many different caveats and laws and codes, and it changes year over year. But I was still glad to have done that process, to know, first of all, just how much did I spend on all of these things this past year, but also to be confident and sure that this was the best route to take. I actually did the math. I asked an expert on it. So yeah, maybe more work than what I needed to do, but I learned in the process and got to have a little bit deeper dive on my finances for the past year. And
yeah. All right. Let's talk about our meal plans, specifically what worked. So for me this week, my 3 are, I did baked boneless chicken thighs.
Yum.
That was really good. And then I did freezer vegetables, whatever vegetables were in the freezer. I very rarely do fresh vegetables because I'm always roasting them. I will do fresh if I'm going to do something raw, but most of the time I'm not. Even fruit to put in my yogurt, I use frozen fruit. I put it in the microwave for a minute to just take the freeze off.
What's your go-to bag of fresh veggies?
Fresh veggies or frozen?
Frozen veggies.
Frozen broccoli. Always.
Okay, so not a mix, just
straight up broccoli. I'm a broccoli girl. If I'm doing a mix, then it's like a root veggie mix.
Cool.
Yeah, because I hate like squashes. I hate like skinning them. So I typically, and I also hate peeling potatoes. So I will either buy the potatoes that don't need to be peeled or buy them frozen already cut. So that was a really simple one I did. That was literally like thighs, seasoning, veggies, dinner.
Love that.
Yeah, but I will still have the recipe linked below.
Mm-hmm.
Another one was a one-pot adobo chicken and rice, and I adapted this from Delish. This we actually made more of than the recipe called for and brought half of it to a friend who just had a baby.
Oh, cool.
This was a very easy, like in the Dutch oven, it can hold a lot. So we were able to put it all in there, still made it one pot, even though it was for like 4 adults and 2 children. It was great, and it was very tasty.
Oh, yum.
It was similar to the one-pot buffalo chicken and rice that we usually do. And then the last one was a slow cooker chili recipe.
Ooh.
I don't typically do slow cooker because I don't have a lot of time. Scratch that. I don't have a lot of energy in the morning. This morning, Atlas woke all of us up. Well, Travis wakes up at 6 regularly, but Atlas woke the rest of the house up at 6:30. We do not need to be awake that early. So everybody was up.
The nice thing about a chili in a crock pot, though, is you can just leave it for forever. And
Yeah.
the longer you leave it, usually the better it is. Whereas for me, if I were to plan to do a crock pot with a meat in it, but I'm gone for 8 hours, then it's like, but it only needs to cook for 4. And then what do you do? And then it gets overcooked. So that's, I think, where soups are really great.
Temperatures. If you do, usually a slow cooker recipe that's 4 hours is a high, you do high temperature slow cooker. But the low temperature is 6 to 8. So I did this maybe a little later in the day, and I did a high because I only had like 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Still, a lot of times you still have to do something halfway in between. If there's a meat involved, it usually isn't like dump it, leave it, come back at the end of the day. Like that's very
What kind of
rare.
slow cooker recipes are you doing? I have never had to do something in the middle. I think slow cookers
Turn
are
it
meant
off.
No.
Or change it, or I mean, maybe this is the beginning, but like you're braising something at first, then you're cooking something, then you're adding the meat. So usually it's like potentially 30 minutes to an hour before you're actually ready to put it in. I'm just saying chili slow cooker for the win, because it is just like a dump, leave, doesn't matter.
Yeah. My slow cooker is a Ninja Foodie, so it does have a braising, like a saute function, and then I can just do that right in the pot. I don't know if other slow cookers have that option, but yes, it just takes at least 30 minutes of prep time before you can put it on the slow cooker. And you can't put frozen meat, frozen raw meat should not go in a slow cooker. You can go in a pressure cooker, not a slow cooker.
Sometimes it's just like not my most efficient option.
Yeah.
But if you're making a soup, then it's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so for me this past week, I did a cranberry meatball recipe with turkey, ground turkey.
Yes.
And then made some mashed potatoes, which I always think mashed potatoes are going to be so complicated to make, and they just aren't. You just boil the potatoes. So there's really not, and I just leave the skins on. I think it's tasty. So you just boil the potatoes. There's not really any like slicing, dicing, peeling, whatever. And then you just like mash it up with milk. It's actually so simple.
If you have a KitchenAid in that you use the little whisk on there, it is really easy.
Yeah.
You can make a big old batch too.
Exactly. And then we were traveling this past week. We were doing a book signing for our book, Buy What You Love Without Going Broke, in Pennsylvania. And then we stayed longer because it's where we're from and hung out with friends. And the one night we did just a simple dinner together of steaks from Aldi. They do have some really great options there. And veggies, we had zucchini and a red onion. So we did roasted zucchini, red onion, just sliced in the oven. I do have a recipe linked for that. And then the steaks just on a cast iron. I always used to think, I got to do steaks on a grill. And do I feel like firing up the grill and walking outside? But I have learned, I actually think I prefer steaks in a cast iron skillet. So I have a recipe for kind of how to do that. I don't add a bunch of herbs or garlic, but butter does seem to be the key. Cooking it in butter, usually it's about 4 minutes each side. I do have a meat thermometer, so that helps. Like I can kind of pull it off when it reaches about 135, 140, and it's usually just perfection.
Yeah. Butter, a little bit of garlic, and a little bit of Worcestershire. That has been my...
Okay. I'm just a
That's
butter girl.
it.
But I also learned from my friend, make sure that you pull the steaks out of the fridge. If you can, like 30 to 40 minutes ahead of time, letting them just rest and become room temperature, and seasoning them. Well, I do a ton of salt and pepper and then butter in a cast iron.
Yep.
And it is so great.
Yeah.
And so easy. That is such an
Yes.
easy dinner that is super filling. Again, while we were cooking the steaks, we were roasting the veggies. They didn't take long because onions and zucchini just doesn't take long. So that was
And if you want to elevate it before you start, chopping up some onions for a pan, caramelize them the whole time you're cooking everything else.
Oh, I love some caramelized
onion. They really need they need 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So, and they don't take a lot of like work. They just kind of sit there.
That was our go-to when we parked on your property.
Yes.
In our motorhome, in your driveway, beginning of the pandemic. We were COVID quarantined together. And we did a lot on the grill.
Yes.
But I remember onions, like grilling onions was a go-to.
Grilled onions and steak. Like we would do steak like once a week. We were just so bougie.
Yeah, what else could you do? It's all you had to look forward to. And then again, simple, because we were traveling this week. I just did some turkey sandwiches on an English muffin. I love just a little bit of mayo, cheese, sliced turkey, the oven roasted, and then usually I'll do some spinach, cucumber, thinly sliced onion. That's the key. I know you don't like raw onion.
I don't like raw onion.
Very thinly sliced and perfect. But I did find a recipe that looks interesting. I will say I didn't make it exactly this way, but the recipe I linked has, I think it's like an aioli, which we know is mayo, with I think sriracha and apples and cheese.
Turkey and apple and cheese.
Yeah.
Good combo.
So try that one out.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to the listener question. This one comes from Jenna with a G.
Well, it's not exactly Jenna. This person only gave their email address, but there was a G at the beginning. So now your name's Jenna.
So they asked, once you are in a great financial state, how do you stop feeling a little guilty for spending on what you love? For example, I can now afford to buy organic and higher quality groceries, a value of mine, yet I feel guilty not always going for the deal.
What a frugal problem. And we have a link that you can submit your questions for this segment. It's in the description below. We got this question multiple times the first time we asked for questions in different ways. Essentially, it's how do I not feel guilty for not getting the lowest price, which is so frugal. Traditional frugality has always been, how do I get the lowest price on as much as possible? And it's what we're conditioned to think. So there's either like guilt or the feeling like I just can't justify spending more because my disposable income is not infinite. And so, but it doesn't matter like how much money you're making. It's never enough to justify spending on what you value. If what you value is not, you're not getting the cheapest price on it. I still experience this. I think it ebbs and flows on what it is. So I can appreciate what you're saying here, Jenna, for you, it's specifically groceries. Like for me, I think it's groceries, but also maybe clothing or things or home decor. Like there are certain categories where it has to be the best possible deal. I have to have shopped around. I have to feel really great about it. And a lot of those habits have served me well, but they are habits that I have formed over time that limit me from being able to just buy the thing that I need to buy, even if I don't have a coupon for it or it's not the best possible deal. Like we're conditioned to want
everything to be as efficient as possible. And we know that's one of our tenets of frugality, like simplicity, efficiency, problem solving, and getting as much as we can for as little as possible. Honestly, to say it in not even the best way is what we're trying to do here. But for me, I think, again, I'm still working through this, so I've not arrived, but it has helped me to be able to not just identify my values and help condition myself to be okay with spending on those things, because I know that there's other things I am saying no to, but it has also been defining what is enough. Because so often that question of, I could have saved, but it's not tethered to anything. If I would have spent $1 on produce instead of $2, what would I actually have done with that extra dollar?
Mm-hmm.
Where would it have gone to? What would it have purchased me? And if we've already defined enough in all of these other categories that my emergency fund is fully funded, I am investing in retirement, I am meeting my goals on paying off debt, or I'm debt free, then it doesn't make that much of a difference if we're spending that extra dollar on something that we value, on getting the better quality produce, the greater nutritional value out of our food. But I think asking ourselves these questions, defining the enough, and helping to kind of reorient our framework when we come to those points of, I got to get the best deal, to be able to create that pause. That pause we also create in, is this something that I actually want to buy? That pause can also serve us on feeling good about the purchase of, what else would I actually do with this money? How do I feel about every other goal that I've set for myself? Is this enough? Spend the money.
Yeah, I think it's funny to be talking about like practicing spending money, but like that concept of enough really is important, because if we don't have it, we can hoard money.
Yeah.
And just be very paranoid if every dollar is not being utilized most efficiently, which is a danger in zero-based budgeting. When you want every dollar to have a job, ideally in a perfect world, every dollar would have the best job it can have. But that's not the case with zero-based budgeting. Every dollar just needs a job. And sometimes that job is to serve your values, not the math.
Yeah.
And so we have to get out of this like optimization at all costs mentality, because somebody in that equation is going to live a half-life. And most often it's going to be us. Our money is going to be living a full life, gaining its interest, paying off debts, all this. And we are living a half-life because we're living in guilt. We're living in shame for not using money most efficiently. That was why I kind of joined up with the FIRE movement after I paid off our debt, is because I felt guilty for not every dollar being used as efficiently as possible, because, just a couple months prior, every dollar was going to debt. And so we have to get out of that. Also, marketing for women has mainly been in the form of deals, sales, coupons, rebates. And so, and men still struggle with this too. I don't want to say that they don't, but marketing primarily for women has been targeted our hunter-gatherer mindset, this mentality. And the way women have traditionally like hunted and gathered has been like bringing home things. We are the primary buyers in most households. And so most marketing for women, because of that, has been in the form of getting the deal, getting the sale. And so we feel smart when we get the deal. We feel smart when we've optimized every dollar. But we do it at the sacrifice of meeting our own values. So I really do think one of the first solutions is, what is enough? What is enough for saving, and what is enough for spending? And then really like being almost mad at how marketing and product and service companies have conditioned us to think that we deserve less than what we value, that
Mhm.
we don't deserve what we value. We deserve more stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, when we've set a spending plan, and this is the amount that we have defined as enough for groceries, to allow ourselves to spend that and not be bummed if we meet that amount every month. Like that has happened for me, where I set a budget for our groceries and I'm bummed if I don't come in below that at the end of the month. But it's like, this is for the groceries.
Mhm.
This is what I have set aside. Everything else is also covered. Why can't I just spend even up to that ceiling within this grocery budget? And so I think some of that, again, has to do with our thoughts, the emotions that are attached to it, and then the behaviors, a little bit of cognitive behavioral um, understanding, and kind of how our thoughts lead to our emotions, lead to our actions. And so if we can catch it at that thought level and be curious with ourselves about, why am I having so much difficulty just buying the organic product here, and giving ourselves a new framework for how we can think about that, then that can shift the way that we then feel about that decision, and then the action that we choose to take as a result. And really, all of this is holding the tension, and this isn't going to come naturally to us. It is a process of recognizing that I want to live now, and my life and my goals matter now, as well as my life and my goals for the future. And so, yeah, it may not mean that I am able to achieve every single future goal, but it's also valuing what is happening in the here and now as well. An ability to get the produce and cook the food for my family and loved ones that we're going to really enjoy time around the table together. If that means that I'm not able to put an extra $5 towards my investments this
Mhm.
month, because this is what I set aside for my groceries, it's going to be constant reworking and reframing, having these conversations, asking the questions, talking with your friends about it, reorienting our thoughts around it, being curious with ourselves, giving ourselves a new narrative. And slowly but surely, we will get there. We will be
Yes.
able to buy the organic thing guilt free.
That is the goal. I think so. I have been working through these like 4 questions when I make a purchase, and they're essentially levels. So we've got best, better, good, and freedom. So, best, how can I get it for free? Better, how can I get it for low cost? So, that would be, secondhand. The free would be like trading, borrowing, buy nothing. Good would be, how can I get a deal on it? So deals don't even come to me until like the 3rd level, because I think most deals are a scam. And maybe we'll talk more about that on another. We talk about it in our book, Buy What You Love Without Going Broke. They are literally lies and it is illegal, but the FTC is too busy to do anything about it. And then the last one is freedom. So if I can't get it for free, low cost, or for a deal, how can I pay full price and feel really good about it? So that's like buying local, sustainable, stuff like that, not using fast fashion or companies with a history of exploiting their employees. So those are my 4 levels. And so I think if those are important to you, that maybe you can use those to help you practice spending. So, and then if you're getting a lot of stuff at the free or secondhand level, then the things you do need to buy new, like produce, you can't buy used produce.
Yeah.
Then you can feel good. You can feel in that freedom, like place.
And some of this can happen before you even go to the store, saying, I am going to buy this type of produce today. And that can even help, rather than the game time decision in the store where you're seeing the different prices and you've just got that automatic response, but making the decision ahead of time of, where is this money going to go?
Yeah.
So we get it, Jenna, but it can be done. You can spend guilt-free. Thanks for your question. And thank you all for tuning in. If you like what you see, please subscribe, follow us. We are putting out these Sunday Reset episodes every single Sunday. So weekly, you can tune in. And if you've got a question for us, fill out that link in the bottom. And
Yep.
we'd love to hear from you.
See you next week.
Bye.